always discover with the, let's call it the cannabis community, as it were, some of the nicest, chillest, sanest people I know. So I just want to start by saying I am honored to be here with you guys as you contemplate an extraordinary leap forward that only a little while ago must have seemed completely impossible and quixotic and entirely out of bounds. That's an incredibly exciting feeling. It's full of trepidation, I'm sure, full of energy, full of passion, sometimes full of relief, but there's nothing like that feeling. I remember speaking in Massachusetts before marriage equality came there. I remember going to different states when they were about to face various referendums, and I can feel the same energy here, for the same, in some ways, fundamental reasons. Now, it's very fashionable to think of politics these days as entirely a function of money. That the only change that ever occurs is really because some very wealthy and powerful interests want to finance it. That everything in Washington is rigged according to big money, and the public debate and arguments, what we think of as a deliberative democracy, is basically irrelevant. And I do not want in any way to diminish the amazing contributions of people like George Soros or the late Peter Lewis in helping fund and finance a movement. That is absolutely integral. But unless you actually have the arguments, unless you can actually get into the public sphere and make them and debate them and win again and again and again, no money can suffice to change the world. Change in America always comes at some level from the bottom up. It's a crazy place to govern. I've studied this politics now for 30 years. That seems to me to be the fundamental truth. Prohibition and the prohibition regime has been based on lies. These lies are quite easily dispelled by reason, by science, by analysis, by simple reason. It is not true that marijuana and cannabis is as toxic or as dangerous as heroin. Not true. And yet, the United States government, the federal government, insists that it be classified as just as dangerous and without any medical use. Now, at some point, that lie will collapse. All lies in the end will collapse. And the prohibitionists have been unable to refine this argument, and their rigidity on this has made them seem increasingly ludicrous. And then, of course, there's the personal issue of those whose lives have been ruined by criminal prosecution, by criminal records, by the kind of stories that Anthony relayed. And especially the insupportable and outrageous fact that this prohibition is disproportionately inflicted upon African Americans. This is factually, objectively, and empirically a racial form of prohibition. Not in principle, but in practice. Every viewpoint that can buttress this should be a part of a growing and thriving coalition of ideas and thoughts. And I think there are both liberal cases for this and conservative cases for this. And I think it's vital that we keep the two in a creative tension, and we do not seek to expel anybody or to purge anybody for any incorrect views. That we put the cause before any of this ideological stuff, that we are grateful for converts and utterly indifferent to heretics. It's critical that there be that moment in which individual people, Americans, tell their stories and are free to tell their stories about how this helps them, how this isn't crazy, and break down some of the lazy stereotypes that are both amusing and, like all stereotypes, not without some element of truth, but are really distorting our perspective. You put together the facts and the truth of the matter, you put together the benefits medically, you put together the necessity of ending horrible racial injustice, you put together the need to protect teenagers and children, you add to it both the liberal view that this is obviously a good thing and we shouldn't be punishing people for it, with a conservative view is that whether it's good or bad, we should be able to do what the bloody hell we like with our own lives, as long as we're not harming anybody else. You put it with federalism, and you put it with the end of the closet, and you're beginning to understand why we're at this moment. This can happen. It will happen. But it will only happen the right way if everybody involved in this really does put themselves on the line. It requires passion and sincerity and authenticity for any movement to really impress itself upon the rest of the country. You guys are on the front line. You're doing this not only as a matter of social change, but you're doing it as an extraordinary business opportunity. And as a conservative, I favor that business opportunity. And I wish you all the profits you could possibly make. And I wish you to have exactly an almost perfect example of a fusion of social change and entrepreneurial energy. Not many people get to earn a living and change the world. You do. My hat's off to you, and may we win in Oregon in November. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Andrew Sullivan.